Hi and welcome to episode 5 of the Hytro Performance Podcast, where we talk about BFR and all things training and recovery. Today we're at Martin Nugent Elite Performance Centre up in Sunderland, here to speak to the guys. Okay guys, thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be up here. Second time we've been up here for pre-season camp. I think to start it would be really handy if you could just introduce yourselves and let people know what the centre's all about.
So I'm Martin Nugent. I'm the director of MN Elite Performance. The centre is very bespoke, where we focus on sort of bringing child to champion. It's all about giving people that opportunity to develop, give them that training environment no matter what the level, whether that's an aspiring young child with a dream or a professional athlete who wants that extra bespoke training. The facility itself is 6-year-old as a business, and each year we're going sort of from strength to strength and developing further forward.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm one of the full-time S&C coaches here. I've been here now 3 years, three and a bit.
Seems about 15.
3 and a bit years now. I normally take charge and sort of setting up the pre-season camps and anything like that, and taking a few more bits on like that.
Is it the focus on the pathway and development of athletes that I guess makes you guys different, rather than just taking the guys at the top, taking the guys at the middle?
It's we're looking at whether you're sort of saying you've got the guys at the top. Well, what can we squeeze out of the guys at the top? What can we give them that they may not be getting wherever they're based, whatever sport that might be? But also the guys who are developing. We have a track record of a lot of the guys that are on the walls were once children training under the guidance of myself and the coaches here, who have gravitated to an exceptional level. So we focus. It doesn't matter who you are, who comes through the doors, cheesy as that sounds, we're going to give you the time, no matter whether you're a professional Premier League footballer or you're a grassroots.
Yeah. And Joe, what type of teams have been coming through over the last couple of years?
So we work with everything, to be fair. We work with the college quite a lot, so we'll get a few of the college teams coming in. So they've got academies set up at the minute in rugby and football and in netball, so we'll work with them a couple of times a week. We'll also then work with South Shields Academy as well, and their international academy, so we'll work with players all from 16 up to 23 in that sort of groups. But then we'll also work with kids teams and grassroots teams, so footballers as young as 7 or 8, I think the group is later on today. They come in for a fundamentals group session, gives them something a bit different, keeps them engaged, more movement focused, and developing sort of movement competency as they sort of grow and start growing.
I think it's also a case of giving them something outside of their sport to see what underpins your ability to play the sport, so they're learning. So we have a track record of not just developing the athlete, but actually some guys who might not aspire to the level they wanted to get to from a sort of employment aspect, but actually they've ended up becoming strength and conditioning coaches or physiotherapists because they've been enthused by what we do and how we do it, and they enjoy being around that sport environment. And I mean, Joe also mentioned Joe takes care of the guys over in the United States, so we remotely program teams as well from a distance, so taking care of their planning for the in-season as well as the off-season.
Often in supplement to what guys are already doing at clubs. And we spoke before about sometimes it's because that expertise doesn't exist, and unfortunately we see that a lot in women's sports and across outside of football. But then also, I guess, just for those guys that want to do something different again, right? Different to the regular programming. So do you want to talk more about that? Yeah,
so obviously we'll get a few pro players in from professional football, rugby and all that sort of thing, which they'll then want to do something extra outside of that current club's programme, and that's just because the current club, obviously staffing wise, they're not going to have an individual programme for each player 9 times out of 10. There will be a couple of clubs that will provide a few more individual bits. So with that in mind, you'll get a few players that think, well, I want to try and get the most out of it, what I can, whilst I'm still playing, because it's only a short career. And with that in mind, then that's when they'll come and reach out to ourselves and come in and go for programming that way. We'll then look at what they're currently doing, what they're currently at in terms of in season, when's your matches and all that sort of thing, and try and supplement like via microdose and certain elements like power work, strength work here and that, to try and give them as many tools as they can use whilst they're still playing.
You know, there's times where we will have communications with clubs. So, and I think that is healthy. So we're not sort of going at it, doing it, duplicating the workload. Yeah. So we can then sort of work on certain specialised 1-2% type training. But we get a lot of agents as well from a football perspective who want to invest in their players. And the way we look at it and the way we talk with the players is, it's like, look, you buy expensive cars, would you service it? Yeah. You know, and that's the way you've got to look at it. If you want longevity in the car, you service and you manage it and you look after it. No different with an athlete. No matter what sport they're in, if you manage and service, and they're going to have ultimately how they'll earn their money is by having longevity in their career. And that's the biggest, you know, investment you'll get from your strength and conditioning provision is, we look at making them faster, making them turn better, making them more explosive, but however, keeping them on court, on the pitch, on the track is money in the bank.
As much about injury prevention, right? And so, well, we're here for pre-season camp, which arguably is when I guess you make the most adaptation because you're not trying to go into games, but I guess also speaks to prevention and being ready for the season. So like, why is this such an important time for you guys and for the athletes in their training calendar?
You know, different sports have different approaches, and you know, I've been very lucky enough to work in sports, you know, like so rugby, etc. And you know, they'll leave no stone unturned, and that's just the individual mindset of the players, and having to transition that across to football. It's not let's use the off season just to kick more balls around, because it just sort of doesn't make sense when I do see that. It's like, it's an important part to get a feel for it, but the off season for me is like, right, look back on what you did last season. Do you want to be last season's player? Do you want to improve? That's a great line. And the simple facts are, you know, injuries, niggles, things that really have inhibited your ability to perform. Because ultimately, that's how do we measure performance? You know, did we win? Did you play well? You know, that's the bottom line. When it comes to the sort of money end of sport, that's what people are looking for. So have you been inhibited by injury? Have you had problems? Is there some blocks in your performance that you think, oh, I just can't seem to, there's something occurring, whether it's technically, and then you break it back and go, is it a physical element or is it a technical element? Yeah. That's what your off-season should be about. Don't get us wrong, you need mental recovery and you need physical recovery. That doesn't mean let's go out and just like more beer it up and whatever else. You see, you do, and I'm out in mobs, I'm doing a bit of training, but actually what I'm doing is I'm spending 6 days drinking. You know, they do need that downtime, they need to relax, especially in football. Football is a long season, it's drawn out, and the pressures that come with it, hey, I totally get it, go away, relax. But there needs to be a time where you've got to sit down and, like I say, you think about, right, what do I need to do next? You know, am I going to just sit there and accept being, you know, that last year's player, or do I need to then move on and develop? And it's a case of, for me, the off-season is hugely important. And I think it's often overlooked, being brutally honest. And we don't want to over-toast them, we don't want to overcook them. But I think we need to get in there, and if we can get them from an injury prevention benefit, we can work on a few little performance parameters to make sure they're ready to go back to their club. Their S&C guys accept them in and go, great, we've got this real good canvas now to work with, and then bang, off they go. And you know, that's where we come in. And what we'll do as well, we'll always consider some of the programs that have been set by the club, whether it's the running stuff, because I am not in the business of undermining people. I have my way of working, I'm very accepting that they're their players, and we'll always say, right, well, if we can do this, and I think you need to do a little bit of this, and we'll sort of make that balance. Ultimately, collectively working together in that off-season, we'll hopefully get what we want out of it and improve them.
And then for those players that don't come from maybe a team environment and won't already have some level of coaching guidance, what do you guys as coaches do with individual? I know that you have people in like combat sports, you have cyclists, you have runners through here. In their off season, how do you assess what those guys need which might not be quite as easy as it would be for a rugby or a football team athlete.
I think really, like, it all comes back to, like, when we assess them and say where you're at, and where we'll always have a conversation with the athlete and say, right, is there anything you think you need to get on top of this off season, whether, as Martin said, if that's injury prevention, making sure you can fine tune certain aspects of performance sort of thing. Do you need to work cardiovascular endurance? Do you need to work speed endurance? Do you need strength endurance? Something like that. And then when we go through the assessment, we might say, well, actually, if you look at your numbers, they're up or they're down from last year when we assessed you, which means that we need to work on this fine little bit here to bring these numbers back up, which has then had a beneficial, or is seen to be have a beneficial effect on your overall sport and performance.
And it's one of those, if it's like a track athlete, if we have good communication with the track coach, we'll work with the track coach. Okay. If we have video analysis and we'll sit down with the athlete and say, right, what area of, say, that 200 metres are you really struggling with? Because they'll know. Yeah. And they might bring in video footage, and then we can break it down biomechanically and say, right, this is how this looks. So if we look at the force plate data, this is what it's telling us. So we can then critique it and go, right, we're going to focus a program based on what we're seeing on the track, to what you're feeling on the track, and to what we're seeing on sort of the analysis of your data in the gym.
That's really interesting. Both of you referenced it. How important is data in the pre-season training block?
Data is like the main sort of aspect of every training that there should be, realistically. So, like you say, obviously, we'll assess every athlete that comes in, whether that's off-season, in-season, pre-season, everything like that. We'll assess them.
If it's a child?
Yeah, a child, or it's a professional footballer, rugby, anything in between. We'll go for a complete biomechanical assessment, mobility assessment, force plate data with them, speed, agility stuff, and then really sort of go, well, this is where we're at currently. This is where we think that we could make the biggest improvements based on X, Y, and Z, and then put together a plan to move forward with that. That's the same for everybody, as Martin said. Like, that needs to be the underpinning of every sort of program we do, because if we don't know where you are, we don't know then where we can get you to, and we don't know if we're even on the right track to get you to where you want to be. Because if we're then just training you for training's sake, it's a waste of your time, it's a waste of our time. Because realistically, we're not going to see any major benefit. Because if I'm training you and I'm thinking, oh, I need Rich on a strength block here, and actually your force plate data says we're really strong, but our activity is really low, then we're like wasting my time because I'm not training the correct sort of adaptation I'm chasing.
And it's like, you know, you get in the car, you don't know where you're going, you're going to need a sat nav or a map. Yeah. That's the data, and that guides the program. So the program, where the program needs to go, the program's never set in stone. It's got to be fluid, because athletes get injured, things change, fixtures become busy. Yep. So when we're testing, the data might drop. Why they dropped? Oh, they're fatigued. Well, actually, if they're fatigued, we need to deload that week. Yeah. So, you know, the test data has a lot of benefits. From that potential of injury and fatigue is huge. When
Martin's mentioned there, the sort of fatigue element, and sort of like when we need to deload weeks and everything, that's sort of like originally why I got in touch with Warren for Hytro in that aspect, was because obviously we had off-season camp coming in, and it was a case of we can't control what the players have done before coming in to see us, and we don't know where they're at when they're going to come in to see us. If players come in and they're absolutely shot and they're dead, and there's no point in me going, well, it is your biggest day, and going, I want like 3 reps of 4 sets sort of thing of a heavy lift here, and it's like, I'm not going to get that benefit that I want because they're going to be completely on the floor. So it'd be a waste of time, which is then why I sort of got in touch with Warren and with Hytro for that exact reason of, well, if I can then deload training but still get the same sort of chase the same strength and adaptation that I want, it was like a no-brainer in that sense of getting you guys involved and upscaling our training in terms of what we can offer for players, but also making sure that what we're offering then is the best that we can.
I mean, we saw a live example today of a guy who couldn't run a lot of volume because of inflammation in his foot, didn't want to be told again, get on the skier for an hour just to get that volume in. So he strapped him in and made him do max effort on a watt bike, like 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off. I thought he was going to throw up, but like actually he got the power output, he got the volume in his legs, and that's an interesting technique to have at your disposal now. I mean, what other things do you guys think that maybe you do a little bit differently here, which is why it's such a great program?
Well, I'll be honest, like, we'll use BFR even if it's like like youth athletes sort of thing. So like if they're 14, 15 sort of thing, that sort of youth bracket there, like we're not opposed to using BFR, obviously as long as we've got parental consent and all that sort of thing behind it, just because it's such a caveat I have. Like we've got athletes who train 3, 4, 5 times a week for multiple hours a day sort of thing, and it's like they're coming in then to see when they're like, oh, I want to be stronger, and you're like, well, how can I do that when you've got like 12 hours of training before you've even seen me? It's like, I'm not going to get that crossover there. So it's like, for example, we've got a karate athlete who was like 3rd in the world now and European champion and all that sort of thing. And she's really high level. And we've used BFR with her as soon as we started getting it in. And even when she was like 14, 15 at the time, because it was a case of your training load's so high and I still want to try and get this strength benefit and make you strong and powerful that I can. I need to be able to deload you but still get that benefit at the same time. So it means that I think we're one of the only ones that do use BFR for youth, and that might be a bold statement, but I haven't seen many that do use it at the minute. And I think that's one of our major differences personally.
I think as well because we can be very bespoke to the individual. We're not we wouldn't put a huge group in a set of BFR. I mean, when we look at, we don't necessarily always just look at the age. We look at physiologically where they're at. And I mean, some of the guys we put through the BFR, that, like you say, is the competency level is very high. I mean, she is probably up there as probably one of the most decorated athletes we have. I mean, she's literally cleaned the floor with everybody. And we've got to really, and Joe in particular, really thinking of ways that we can enhance our training. Bearing in mind our workload outside of here is phenomenal because of just what kata karate actually does and what it entails. There's a lot of hours involved. So in order to keep the stimulus, we've got to be thinking outside the box with it on every occasion. But there'll be times, because obviously with that type of sport as well, there's no end point. So the issues you get is you get a lot of overexertion of the joint, especially around hip and knee. So because you're not hitting into somebody, it's more about the art. She's moving at high velocity. So, you know, the exertion on the joints is huge. So she does have a bit of joint irritation. We've got to manage that. And obviously the Hytro, the BFR, comes in very, very handy for that.
Hytro has naturally been adopted by, I mean, we're really fortunate to be in so many sports now, NFL, F1, you know, travel to a degree, you know, football, rugby, tennis, running, you name it. But like, there's probably very few coaches that have the experience of you guys working across so many different sports. What are some of the most common mistakes maybe or bad habits you do see athletes going into pre-season? Like I'm assuming it's just like everyone goes, get as big as you can in pre-season.
Well, you get a mixture. So for example, like if we looked at football, because we're in the football pre-season, people will go, you'll get football coaches, they'll tell a player, I've got to be bigger, right? And have you ever thought, how do I even do that genetically? Or am I predisposed to that? But the biggest problems can be is, right, you can go and put on size. And I've seen it with athletes. But with the size and the way they're doing it, they haven't considered limb speed. So, right, you might be big, but you're going to be more immobile.
You slow down.
So you've got to think, and you can increase muscle mass. And you've got to be smart with it and how you're doing it. It's all dependent on where you're at and your growth. But you've also got to consider limb speed. You can't slow limb speed down. And it's a case of, it's managing expectations. There's still sometimes, I think, and maybe it's in football in particular, where it's about beach body in the off season. And people get that mistaken with real, what is old school S&C and what's, let's go beach weights, more bare bod, etc. And, you know, that's problematic. And also, right, it just means I'm going to go out and do just loads of work with the ball. And I spent 5 hours kicking the ball, right? Well, what was the purpose of that? Well, I don't have one. Well, why were you doing it? It's just you wasted hours. It's wasted time. You've kicked 1,000 footballs. Why? Why'd you do it? Well, I can't answer that question because there's no intent. There's no rationale for you doing it. Why not go and say, I'm going to spend an hour, I'm going to particularly work on this particular area and fine tune it. You know, and that's where the overuse injuries and the hip flexors and the hamstrings and all those little things start to creep up, and you don't want them creeping up. You've just had 9 months of it. You know, and it's
That's really interesting. So you both spoke about managing load as in volume, but also load around pre-season. But perhaps maybe, and you spoke about you guys are set up instinctively to deliver really bespoke training. So maybe some of the things that coaches and athletes are missing in their pre-season is specificity, as well as just load. Like that specificity of training with a really clear objective of what does success look like, what's it going to look like when we turn up on day one of club pre-season, what have we worked on, how are you separating yourselves?
Yeah, I think it's like one of the main things I would say sort of we'll have in terms of issues with like off-season stuff and players going away and doing their own things and all that. It's a lot of it when they go to see certain trainers, they go certain places, they go and train sort of thing like that. It's a case of we're going to get loads of volume as Martin said, we want to try and get you like ripped and we're going to try and get you nice and big and stuff like that. And then
it looks great for the gram.
Yeah, it looks great. There's loads of exercises that look great for Instagram, look great on social media, but actually, what's the point of doing it sort of thing? As Martin says, we need that intent, but it's also a case of players are just going, I'm going to go for running now and I'm going to do this on top of what I've already been set because they're like, I want to get better, I want to get better, I want to get better, I want to get better. But it's actually what they're doing is they're just overcooking themselves. So it's they'll peak too soon, so they won't even peak before as they get a pre-season, they'll be before it. So when they come in a pre-season, they're already on a low, and then the scores are low, and then the club's on at them, and then it's like, oh, where do I go from here, sort of thing.
Yeah, I did all this work in pre-season,
I
still get yelled at when I come home.
It's like they get to a point where actually you've trained now for the sake of training, but you've had no end goals, man. So there's no clear intent of what you're actually trying to achieve. So
it's almost like you want to have an idea of, you know, it's maybe it can come from the clubs of clear intent of what action needs to improve upon, rather than just we're training for training's sake.
And then that goes back to like why we're so data driven in this aspect is because of we don't want to put a session on for the sake of having a session on. Like we need to know exactly where you are when you've come in to me to say, actually, Joe, I'm stiff through hips, glutes, hamstrings. So you getting me to try and do a clean and jerk is going to be an absolute waste of time because I'm not going to get in a triple extension. I'm not going to be able to produce these forces that are required. So we'll then go back to being data driven and go, well, where are we? So what can I actually aim to improve now? Where are you going to get the biggest bang for your buck, sort of thing?
So it seems instinctive then, like I know the answer, like how important is recovery for you guys as part of that pre-season program?
Massive. I mean, going back to what you were saying there, any idiot can make another idiot tired. You know, let's be honest. And it does, just being tired and sweaty doesn't mean you've had a good session. If you've spent 4 hours in the gym, why? You spent 4 hours on the pitch, why? You know, recovery and rehab, doing all the recovery stuff. You know, recovery ultimately dictates how well you're going to train the next time round. That's it. So recovery is massive. Your performance, what you're going to do, whether that's in the gym, whether that's on a competition, how well you'll perform is based on how recovered you are. That's it. And it's absolute number one, because if the athletes that come through this door haven't recovered well,
You can't do anything.
and we're not getting much done. You know, and sometimes we're a company. Ultimately, we have to pay the bills. But there's times where we turn people away and just say, look, not today. It's, you know, you need to go and rest. And these are the things we want you to do. Just sleep. Eat, sleep, recover, hydrate, get ready to go again. Because there's simply, some of them are at a point where you can't do anything with them. And I don't want to waste the money coming in here to do some basic recovery stuff. But the recovery is massive.
So interesting. I'm going to divert away from recovery briefly. Like I know we have guys who've used recovery here. Today we had some athletes using it in the ice bath, which is really interesting what they think, because off the back of the learnings of the research done with Oxford United. But how else have you guys incorporated BFR through the training?
So just today, for example, we use it quite a lot in terms of movement prep work. So when we're using it in the warm-ups and stuff, we use it to try and warm up the muscles a bit quicker, warm up the joints a bit quicker, help to increase sort of range of motion after it, have that analgesic effect even. So if anybody's coming in, they've got a little knock or a little niggle sort of thing like that, obviously if you have them strapped in, you go through a sort of movement flow from floor to standing, warm-up wise, it can really sort of add a bit of benefit that way. Like a lot of them, one of the lads today said he felt like a new man after he's done his BFR recovery, movement prep, sorry. So we use it quite a lot in that sense, and we use that throughout the season, not just in off-season. But then on top of that, especially within the off-season work, and to be fair, in season as well, we'll use it for like sort of strength and hypertrophy training and stuff like that, where I found one of the biggest things is if we've got like a really tall athlete and they're quite limmy and leggy sort of thing, like they might struggle with a trap bar. And trap bar might be, it's obviously quite a good exercise, it's quite a safe exercise in terms of getting a good strength adaptation after it. But if you've got someone who's quite limmy, they struggle with it because they can't get to that depth because their legs is like 4 foot, 5 foot sort of thing and that. And it's like, they'll struggle to get into them low positions. So if you want to then load it up, they're just going to end up feeling it in their back more than anything else. So I've used it quite a lot recently where I've loaded the trap bar, not very heavy, but followed the sort of strength guidelines from Hytro and had them strapped in and done it that way. So it's a deloaded exercise in sense of there's not a lot of weight on it. The reps are a bit higher, but the blood flow like restrictioned up and they're up to set and 4, and then they're really struggling and they're hating us by the end of the session. But they've only moved like a 5 or 10 plate on either side of a trap bar. It weighs like 30 kilograms. So they're still getting that strength adaptation. And I think that's one of the main things we look to use it for, is when we can, we still want to get that strength adaptation without having to load them too heavy. So they're going to be fatigued for training the next day or within the next few days. Like, we still want to chase after it. So we'll put them in.
But even some like guys, like we've had a few, was a rugby league guy I worked with, he plays Super League. And he really struggled with depth of squat.
Really?
And
just range of motion?
Yeah, just really a lot of tendon stress. And, you know, you're talking about guys who've had a hell of a lot of impact over the years. And I put him in, he'd never saw a pair of Hytro shorts before. I was like, just put them on for us and let's go for a whirl. And he was amazed at his depth of squat. The pain reduced dramatically. And I found that with older athletes as well. You know, some of the guys really struggle with a range and struggle with, because of, you know, it's not because they've had bad technique over the years, it's just the wear and tear damage that happens playing contact sport. And the relief they get that they can actually get into these shorts and actually start to move, probably like they did about 10 years before that. And they're over the moon, the dramatic change in what they're able to do, you know. And it's, I think sometimes we look at all the younger guys coming in, but actually the dramatic effect it has on some of the older guys we've had, who've had some hard knocks. It has a profound effect on pain level.
Yeah, really. Just got so used to carrying injuries.
Just
having
carrying
to adapt
knee pain and just
Yeah.
trying to you know, shifting around, trying to get comfortable in it, any version of a squat, or just avoiding it completely. And even just to a point where some of them just avoid lifting the lower limb and just sit on a bike.
Really?
Yeah, these guys are now like, I can actually start to lift again.
Wow.
And they've seen a profound benefit to using them.
So BFR is one of the modalities that you have here. I know you have loads of other equipment and devices going on. How easy is it to get athletes to start using it? Do you bring them on the journey? Do you just say, here, shut up, I'm the coach, do the reps? Is it a mix?
It's a mix, depends on what athlete you've got, I think, personally.
I mean, ultimately you're paying to come in here for our expertise, so there's no point in coming ignoring us. You know, that's wasted money, being brutally honest. Generally, whatever we tell people to do, we'd never get real athletes who come push back and don't want to do it, because, like I say, they're paying to be here. So
it's not the mindset of the type
and that's it. It's generally, I mean, from the children all the way through to adults, they're good. They're really good. I mean, we get a lot of comments from external coaches who'll come in and go, wow, they just get on and do that. Like, so they'll have that own mobility routines that they'll get on with before we even have to really intervene. They'll walk through the door, but being equipped to do it, bang, 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 and away they go. So they are pretty good that way.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's a case of you've got to know your athletes. You've got to develop that rapport before you just say to them, right, we're doing this sort of thing, how are these on sort of thing.
Trust
so
me.
Which is then why, like, as I know we've spoke about the assessment sort of thing, the assessment's not just about, let's see what you can jump, it's about trying to sort of see, how do they react if we do this, what they're like, what sort of crack can we have with them and sort of thing, just getting that rapport between ourselves. So then when we do speak to them and I say, actually, look, like, we're going to do some velocity-based training today and we're going to use this bit of kit by Vitruvo, we're going to be on these blood flow restriction today and we're going to use this by Hytro and stuff, and all the other little bits that we use, they know I'm saying it because it's actually going to be beneficial to them rather than just a case of, we'll just do this for the day.
They have an explanation. And like I say, which is a good point, we build trust. I think that's the most important thing you can do as a coach with an athlete. Just get them to trust you. The rest just takes care of itself. And it's, the guys, we're not just saying, right, go and put that on.
Yeah.
This is the rationale. And we always try and instill this in the athlete that comes in, as cheesy as it sounds. If I told you to go and run off the bridge because you're going to be a better athlete, you will ask why. Yeah. So, if you're in here, ask questions. I was like, intelligent athletes will want to learn and will want to ask questions. And that's why some of the guys, we know some of the private guys we work with, even in professional sport, have purchased Hytro. Because obviously they've seen the value of using it here and they want to use it when they're not with us, when they're traveling, whether they've got competition, whatever. So, they're embracing whatever we're telling them to do and spending their own money to. Yeah, well,
it's a real core part of the Hytro business to kind of build what we're doing with coaches and putting it all in the hand of experts to be able to like almost feed back. And we've learnt loads working with you guys. Actually, this would be more advantageous, or this is how people are using product, and we can write new protocols or do new research. I guess, what advice would you give younger or less experienced coaches going into this pre-season training block, like just around how they should approach the athletes, how they go around planning, and some of the, I guess, lessons you guys have learned? I mean, that could probably be another hour conversation, but just like your top tips for coaches.
I think from a planning perspective, don't plan too far ahead just yet, because you don't know what's going to come through that door. Because you'll have a generic plan of where you're going to go and how you want your off season to look, but that could be depending on who comes through that door, it could be smashed to smithereens by the time they've come in. So you want to be able to
plan in pencil, not in pen.
Yeah, pretty much.
Then that means that you can then rub it out and change it if needed. Yeah. That's the best way.
You don't have an idea of your planning, if you're testing and you're evaluating. Not everybody has to their disposal thousands upon thousands of pounds of testing equipment. So it's sort of have a belief system and follow it. Because ultimately, how do you measure an athlete's performance? Well, just did they improve? And based on whatever testing you might be doing, you might be just getting them to chalk mark a jump on the wall and measuring it with a tape measure. So long as you reproduce it identical how you are and it's been seen an improvement, then you must be doing something right with your athlete. It's, I think, I'm not trying to create problems here, but within strength and conditioning and sports science, I think there's too many egos. Being brutally honest, and people come in here and there's no ego in here. It just wouldn't happen. We're very laid back. I don't know everything. That's why I'm still doing PhD. I'm just trying to learn stuff. We don't know everything. We'll research. And research is a key one for any young coach. Don't think about what the bit of paper on the wall says. Just get your heads in books, get your head in research. Go and find some, guys who you think, actually, I like their belief system and how they operate, and learn from people. Not one person sat and invented this whole realm of sport performance and S&C. It's been an accumulation of years of research and a lot of failings, probably. And don't be frightened to fail. Nothing's perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect training session. There's nothing at all like that. It's trial and error.
Go and work with kids.
Yeah.
That's the best
number one
advice you can give.
Train kids and train anybody.
Because
it's like chimps.
You've got to be reactive to how engaged they are to any sort of session. If a session's rubbish, a kid's going to tell you, oh, God, I'm doing this again. Oh, I'm bored. Sort of thing. Yeah. So train kids, in my opinion, is like the biggest tool any young coach can. And I'm a young coach anyway, so don't be putting that under there. But
no, but then that almost also mean like in the language you use, right? You break down the coaching cue to the most easily understandable version.
If you can do it, you can coach a 6-year-old kid on how to do certain movements and stuff, and get them in hide a certain movement in a game that you want to coach that's going to move it forward. You'll then be able to coach that actual movement with a top-end professional athlete when it comes to that sort of point. And also then you've got to be as reactive as possible with a kid, because oh, look at that's shiny over there. Oh, I want to play with that ball and I want to do that sort of thing.
It doesn't change as they get
older. It doesn't change as they get older either. But if you react to sort of how a kid loses their interest sort of thing, that means that when an athlete comes through and they go, oh, I've got this niggle today, or I've got training tomorrow, or I'm with the first team next week, or I've got 2 games this week, sort of, you'll then be able to react to that because nobody changes their mind quicker than a kid who's bored. So for me, that's the biggest piece of advice.
So if that's how we make great coaches, a question I'd love to end on, and you can each answer it and try and do it in a word. What's the difference between a good and a great athlete? You can't say genetics.
I would say mindset.
Okay, you can expand on that now. You said mindset.
I think because if you don't have the mindset, you can have all the physical qualities you want, but if you're not willing to apply yourself, then it's like that saying, you know, if what's it? I've having an old man moment now. You know,
hard work beats talent.
Yeah, pretty
doesn't
much.
work
Yeah,
hard.
it's the mindset.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I was going to say consistency, which it follows on sort of mindset. It's the same sort of thing. If you're not consistent with your training, like as Martin said, people pay to come and say, well, but if you're only coming to see me once a month and expecting that you're going to get that pro contract down the line, I'm good, but I'm not a miracle worker. Like, if you're consistent with your training, if you work consistently and you train with intent and train intelligently, then you'll get the benefit from it. You will see it, whatever walk of life that might be. If it's a pro contract, it might be professional sport, semi-professional sport. You'll get the most out of what ability you have if you're consistent in every single bit of training that you do.
And I think with those 2 words, I think even if you transition that into day-to-day life, you know, but also I think as well, just one extra on, just being a good person, I think helps.
Goes
I
a
think
long way.
People miss that because we get embroiled in the celebrity of sport. And I think, and I always say to the young guys who come here who really are going places, you know, just stay who you are, be a decent, you know, be a decent person. It goes a long way because, you know, people you meet on the way up, you'll be.
It's a small industry.
I'm
surprised.
Very, and people can never have a bad word to say about you.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time.
Not a
Appreciate you
problem.
guys are very busy. It's been awesome being up here again for pre-season camp. We will be 100% back again. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Cheers.